Silver eye treatment. Let's start with something that puts the personal in personal vendetta. When Governor Inalchuk of Otrar made the brilliant decision to execute Genghis Khan's trade merchants in 1218, he probably thought he was just making a quick profit. What he actually did was sign up for the medieval equivalent of a very expensive eye exam. After conquering Otrar, Khan had Inalchuk brought before him alive. The execution method? Molten silver poured directly into his eyes and ears. Regular beheading was evidently too quick and merciful for someone who interrupted Khan's business plans. The symbolism was deliberate. Silver was the medium of trade that Inalchuk had stolen, so silver became the instrument of his death. The Mongols understood the power of poetic justice, even if their poetry involved liquefied precious metals and screaming. Word spread quickly that crossing Genghis Khan's business interests would result in precious metals being forcibly inserted into your eyes. Human catapults. The Mongols were early adopters of psychological warfare, and nothing says surrender now quite like having your neighbors launched over your city walls via catapult. The strategy focused on efficient resource utilization rather than simple intimidation. During sieges, the Mongols would capture prisoners from preliminary assaults and use them as ammunition for their siege engines. They'd load catapults with severed heads, body parts, or sometimes entire corpses and launch them into besieged cities. The defenders would wake up to find their former comrades scattered across their courtyards like the world's most traumatic confetti. The Mongols would sometimes catapult live prisoners into cities, reasoning that injured, screaming people falling from the sky would be more demoralizing than simple corpses. The tactical brilliance was undeniable. It disposed of prisoners who would otherwise need feeding, created terror among defenders, and potentially spread disease. The Mongols had essentially invented the world's first multi-purpose siege weapon that ran on human misery: Pyramid of Skulls. The Mongols understood that good branding is everything, and nothing says, "We were here," quite like a carefully constructed monument made entirely of human heads. After conquering cities, they would meticulously build pyramids from the severed heads of their victims, not random piles, but architecturally sound structures that would last for years. These monuments served as calculated psychological weapons, designed to greet the next army or trading caravan that passed through the area. Imagine being a merchant traveling the Silk Road and discovering a 20-foot-tall pyramid of human skulls. Different units were assigned specific tasks. Some soldiers handled the beheading, others sorted heads by size for optimal structural integrity. And specialists built the pyramids using techniques that would make modern engineers grudgingly respect their craftsmanship. The most impressive pyramid was built outside Baghdad, reportedly containing over 90,000 heads, arranged in a perfect geometric structure that stood for decades. Boiling alive. When the Mongols captured enemy commanders, they reserved special treatment for those who had demonstrated particular skill or courage in battle. Rather than simple execution, they would be boiled alive in giant cauldrons, a process that could take hours and provided excellent entertainment for Mongol soldiers. The Mongols believed that brave enemies deserved memorable deaths, with boiling alive considered more honorable than beheading. It was like a twisted form of military decoration, except instead of receiving a medal, you got slowly cooked like a medieval lobster. The process was carefully controlled. The water was heated gradually to prolong the experience, and victims were lowered slowly to maximize both suffering and spectacle. Captured prisoners were often forced to watch these executions, knowing they might be next. The Mongols had made bravery seem like a poor career choice. Human shields. The Mongols would capture civilians from surrounding areas and drive them ahead of their army during assaults, forcing defenders to choose between shooting their own people or allowing the Mongols to advance unopposed. The strategy went beyond creating moral dilemmas. The Mongols weaponized the human shields themselves. They would arm captured civilians with weapons and force them to participate in attacks against their own cities. Defenders found themselves fighting their neighbors, brothers, and sometimes their own family members who had been conscripted at sword point. The most diabolical variation involved using captured children as shields. Parents defending city walls would find themselves faced with the choice of shooting at their own children or allowing the Mongol army to advance. The Mongols had essentially weaponized parental love and turned it into a siege-breaking tool that exploited the most basic human instincts: infant execution. The Mongols understood that complete conquest required eliminating future resistance, which led to their systematic approach to killing children. The strategy constituted demographic warfare designed to prevent the next generation from seeking revenge. Children were often killed by having their heads smashed against walls or stones, a technique that required no weapons and could be performed quickly during mass executions. Mongol soldiers would grab infants by the feet and swing them against hard surfaces like medieval clubs, often in full view of their parents. The strategic thinking was coldly logical. Dead children couldn't grow up to become vengeful adults or preserve the cultural memory of Mongol atrocities. The Mongols were practicing preventive genocide, eliminating future problems by murdering them in infancy with remarkable efficiency. Forced cannibalism. During extended sieges, the Mongols would capture prisoners and force them to eat their own dead comrades. This served multiple purposes. It eliminated the need to feed prisoners, disposed of corpses, and created maximum psychological trauma. Prisoners would be given the choice between eating human flesh or being executed immediately. Most chose temporary survival, not realizing they were being turned into walking psychological weapons. The Mongols would then display these traumatized, half-mad prisoners where defenders could see them. The real innovation was forcing prisoners to eat specific people. Captured soldiers were made to consume their former commanders. Prisoners were forced to eat their own family members. The Mongols had turned the most basic human taboo into a weapon of war, creating a factory for producing walking testimonials to their cruelty that they deployed as effectively as any siege engine. Live burials. The Mongols developed a particularly methodical approach to mass execution that involved burying people alive in carefully prepared mass graves. Prisoners would be forced to dig their own graves, then lined up along the edges and pushed in. The Mongols would then shovel dirt over them while they were still alive, creating perfectly organized burial sites with minimal resource expenditure. The real innovation was their quality control system. After filling the graves, Mongol soldiers would walk across the buried areas with long spears, stabbing down through the dirt to finish off anyone who might still be breathing. They were so thorough that they would sometimes return days later to check for survivors who might have clawed their way to the surface. The Mongols had created an execution method that combined maximum psychological horror with optimal efficiency: slow flaying. For captured enemy leaders, the Mongols reserved their most educational form of execution: slow flaying, where the victim's skin was removed piece by piece while they remained conscious. The process served as both torture and a masterclass in anatomy taught by specialists who kept their subjects alive as long as possible. The process could take days. Mongol specialists would carefully remove skin in strips, starting with extremities and working toward vital organs. The goal was to maintain consciousness and maximize suffering. These flaying sessions were often conducted in public, with forced audiences of captured prisoners and local populations. The Mongols had created a medical specialty dedicated to prolonged torture, with practitioners who took professional pride in their ability to extend suffering. Cavalry execution. The Mongols turned their greatest military asset, their cavalry, into a mass execution tool through carefully choreographed trampling spectacles. Thousands of prisoners would be forced to lie on the ground while Mongol cavalry units rode over them repeatedly, turning execution into a combination of military drill and public entertainment. Prisoners would be arranged in precise formations. Then, Mongol cavalry units would charge across them in waves. The horses were trained to step on bodies rather than avoiding them, and riders would guide their mounts to ensure maximum casualty rates. The real innovation was turning these executions into competitive events. Mongol commanders would organize contests to see which cavalry unit could achieve the highest kill ratios turning mass murder into a sport with rules and winners. The psychological impact was amplified by arranging these events where enemy forces could observe them. The efficiency was remarkable. A single cavalry charge could execute hundreds of prisoners in minutes. Merv Massacre. The city of Merv represented the pinnacle of Mongol efficiency in mass killing. With a population exceeding 1 million people, it was one of the world's largest cities. After a 13-day siege, it became the world's largest graveyard. The execution process was organized like a corporate project. The population was divided into groups and assigned to different Mongol units for processing. Each soldier was given quotas. Some accounts suggest 300 to 400 executions per soldier. The operation represented mass murder with performance metrics rather than random violence. Mass beheadings were standard, but the Mongols also employed trampling by horses, arrow volleys, and beating people to death with clubs. Children were killed by having their heads smashed against walls. The quality control was remarkable. After the initial massacre, Mongol soldiers returned to check every corpse individually, finishing off anyone who might be playing dead. Khwarezmid Empire. The destruction of the Khwarezmid Empire represents the ultimate expression of Mongol systematic genocide. The campaign constituted the complete administrative deletion of an entire civilization from human history rather than simple conquest. Starting in 1219, the Mongols systematically destroyed every major city in the empire: Bukhara, Samarkand, Merv, Nishapur, Herat. Each one was not just conquered, but completely eliminated. The Mongols killed the people, destroyed the buildings, filled in the wells, tore up the irrigation systems, and salted the fields. The demographic impact was staggering. The Khwarezmid Empire had a population of approximately 15 million people. After the Mongol conquest, fewer than 1.5 million survived, a 90% mortality rate achieved in less than 2 years. The Mongols didn't just kill people, they destroyed libraries, universities, hospitals, and religious centers. They eliminated the infrastructure that supported civilization itself. The Mongols had successfully deleted an entire empire from human civilization, turning one of the world's most advanced regions into uninhabited wasteland. Genghis Khan redefined the concept of having a bad day. From molten silver facials to competitive cavalry trampling, the Mongols turned mass brutality into a precision art, wiping out over 40 million people, or 11% of the world's population. Think that's the peak of cruelty? Drop a comment on which historical figure we should cover next. Or tell us if anyone outdid Genghis.